funniest excuse you've given a cop that completely backfired? I thought one stupid lie would get me out of a speeding ticket. I had no idea it would end with me walking down a church aisle with a bride I'd never met. It started when my friends and I were driving to a party. I was going way too fast when suddenly, red and blue lights appeared behind us. I pulled over. The officer walked up to my window. "Do you know how fast you were going?" I swallowed. "Fast?" He wasn't amused. 82 and a 65. I immediately started panicking. I couldn't afford the ticket. My friend Jake leaned forward from the back seat and whispered, "Tell him it's an emergency." Before I could think, I said, "Officer, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be at my sister's wedding in like 15 minutes. He raised an eyebrow. "Your sister?" "Yes." "Where?" I completely made something up. "St. Mary's, downtown." He stared at me. Then to my horror, he said, "Okay." I thought he was letting me go. Instead, he pointed ahead. "Follow me." I blinked. "What?" "I'm going to get you there." He got back into his cruiser, turned on his lights, and drove away. My friends and I just stared at each other. Jake whispered, "Bro, there is no wedding." I know. We followed the police car anyway. Then we turned the corner, and there was St. Mary's Church. And there were cars everywhere. And there was a wedding happening. An actual wedding. Jake looked at me. "You have got to be kidding." I wanted to disappear. Before I could say anything, Jake jumped out of the car and ran inside. He found the groom near the altar. "Hey, I need a huge favor." The groom looked confused. My friend lied to a cop about having a sister getting married here. The groom stared at him, then started laughing. "You're serious?" Unfortunately, the groom looked toward the entrance and smiled. "What's his name?" "Mike." The groom thought for a second and said, "Mike who?" "I don't know." He laughed even harder. "Okay, let's do this." Meanwhile, the officer was walking me toward the church entrance. I was sweating so badly I could barely breathe. Then the doors opened. The groom saw me and shouted, "Mike!" Everyone turned. I froze. Then the bride ran toward me. "There you are!" She grabbed my arm. "I'm Sarah. Just smile." I whispered, "I don't know you." She whispered back, "I know, just play along." Then she turned to everyone and announced, "My brother finally made it." The entire room applauded. I had no idea what was happening. The officer stood in the back with his arms crossed, looking incredibly pleased with himself. The bride leaned closer. "Apparently you're supposed to walk me down the aisle." I whispered, "Are you actually okay with this?" She smiled. "Honestly, this is already the funniest wedding I've ever attended." So there I was. Jeans, sneakers, a completely confused expression, walking down the aisle beside a woman whose name I'd learned 30 seconds earlier. Everyone was smiling. My friends were trying not to laugh, and the cop was watching the entire thing. After the ceremony, the groom shook my hand. "Thanks for making our wedding unforgettable." "I'm really sorry." He laughed. "Are you kidding? I'm telling this story forever." Then the officer walked over. "Beautiful ceremony." I nodded nervously. "Thanks." He handed me a piece of paper. I looked down. It was a warning. "You're letting me off?" He smiled. "Yes." Then he added, "Next time, leave earlier for family events." My friends completely lost it. We got back into the car, and Jake was laughing so hard he could barely speak. I looked at him. "How did you even convince them?" He shrugged. "I told the groom you'd made a terrible decision and needed help." I shook my head. "You realize I could have gotten arrested?" Jake smiled. "But you didn't." Then he looked at the warning in my hand. "And technically, you made it to the wedding on time." To this day, I've never gotten another speeding ticket. Mostly because every time I drive past that church, I remember that somewhere in that town, there's a married couple who still tells people their favorite wedding guest was a random guy who showed up in a Honda because he lied to a cop.